All right, so we got Marc Storace now joining us live on the phone, and we're going to talk to him for a few here on Trunk Nation on this Wednesday. Hey, Marc, what's going on, man? How you been?
Hey, Eddie. I've been fine. Been really busy in spite of COVID. And, yeah, it's been a long time now already since the last time we met on the Marc cruise.
Yes, Monsters of Rock. I remember we sat and had some lunch one day and had a nice conversation. And, I was, I don't know if you know this, but I was telling Peter, who works with you, this. A few years ago, I was actually in Zurich. I was in Switzerland for the first and only time. I had come over there for a few days, and Crocus was playing on the farewell tour. I saw the posters up around the city, and it's funny because I was saying to my audience, you often hear stories about bands being bigger in other countries, and there really aren't. In the case of Crocus, you truly were, because you guys were playing in an arena and it said sold out on the poster. I said, look at that. They actually are an arena band here.
It's true. That was 2019. We were on the Adios Amigos tour. It was the final concert in December. And we actually sold out the Hallenstadion back in 1982. So we became the first ever Swiss music act, Swiss band, to sell it out, and it's the rock temple of Switzerland. You know, I mean, all international, all big bands play in there in the Hallenstadion.
Yeah, I wanted to go badly, but I was there with my family, and I rarely take trips with my family because my kids are in school and stuff. And I was like, oh man, they're going to kill me if the one time I'm on a family vacation, I say, I got to go see Crocus. As much as I wanted to try to keep the peace too, if you know what I mean, Marc.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you're with the family. You have to leave your work as second priority.
And the other reason why it didn't bother me that I didn't make it was because at that time, Crocus were planning to do a run of dates in the U.S. as a farewell, which, of course, COVID got in the way of, right?
Well, yeah. So we also thought we were going to come over and play in the USA and Canada, do some Mexico dates, and before that we intended to do the UK with Saxon, and it all fell in the water, with COVID. So here we are today. No Crocus, no tour. Well,
let me ask you about that, because that leads into what you're calling about, which is your first ever solo album, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But why did that? First of all, why was Crocus ending? Why did you do a farewell tour? Who wanted to end the band?
Well, it first came from Fernando's side, and Chris and him are pretty close, so it was like I was outvoted, and I'm usually like that, I'm the Libran, tries to keep harmony, and I went along. There's nothing I could do if the other guys wanted to stop, and I kind of understood the spirit of the decision was let's close the shop while it's still in one piece and we're all alive, and we're giving great shows, and we're still energetic, and to say it politely, kicking ass, So I kind of harmonized with that spirit of things, and we gave everything. And 2019 was full of festivals. We never played so many festivals in Europe, and it was a really nice thing, and that made it even sadder for me. I mean, after the last song, I looked out into the audience. They were having so much fun, and there were people out there, girls, even boys, wiping their eyes, and I started wiping mine a minute later, and then Fernando said, yeah, you got more gigs to do. Don't forget, even though he wasn't going to come over anyway, because he never did. He stopped coming overseas, over the big pond, long haul flights, because of his health situation. He doesn't want to take any risks anymore and so on. So yeah, that calmed me down. I thought, yeah, we still have the last run ahead of us, and it didn't happen. So here I am now with my first solo album.
Before we get Mark, before we get to that, why didn't so there were a lot of bands that had tours, even some bands that had farewell tours disrupted or paused because of COVID, but now they're coming back around and resuming it and making up the dates. Clearly, Crocus made the decision, we're not going to bother making up the dates. That's a sign we're done now. Is that right? Why didn't you decide not to try to still make the dates up now that things are starting to move again somewhat?
Well, for a while back there, I guess it was 1 year into COVID, it already seemed, like the curtain was being pulled for real, because it's kind of, you kind of fall into this subconscious depression about things, and if you're not active, if you don't stay active, it's going to take you, you're going to fall into the dark hole, So the gigs were kind of canceled, and I just saw no hope anymore, and so that's the way it is now, and I sure would like it, to be a different way and come out there with the guys and raise more hell, before we call it a day. But there doesn't seem to be, it's like trying to flog a dead horse, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but but Marc, every band that does a farewell and says no more, almost every one of them comes back.
Yeah.
So maybe, couple years, maybe less, Chris gets the itch, somebody gets the itch. Because the other thing about it is that's interesting about this is most of the times when bands end, it's because the singer doesn't want to do it anymore or he can't do it anymore. But clearly you still have your voice and want to still do it.
Yeah, I have most of it, and it's kind of matured in a way that, like red wine, I say, it's like I've lost maybe I've lost a semitone from my high parts, but I've gained resonance and quality. It's a different kind of sound on the lower region, the mid, and stuff. So I'm still enjoying what I do, and I like having enthusiastic musicians around me, which is what I have now. And the whole process of doing the album was for me keeping me away from the dark hole of COVID, which so many people fell into. It's like sitting on the couch watching movies and putting on weight, and I was doing the opposite, consciously and with pleasure, and because this was no new idea, I had been wanting to do a solo album since ages, and there was a period in time when Crocus was kind of not doing anything much, and that's when I was working on songs, on new songs, with this guy, Charlie Preissel, with whom I wrote Live and Let Live, which is the title song of my new album.
Right.
And, we had about 19 songs done. And then suddenly, we got back together. I got back together with Fernando, and we did the whole Rock the Block and the double live album, Fire and Gasoline, the biggest European tour so far to date, to that date, sorry. And, other things like Montreux Festival we played, and and then Fernando had to have an operation, and he couldn't do it anymore. So I took Mandy Meyer, who had been on tour with us in 1982, One Vice at a Time tour, and he never actually recorded on any Crocus album. And he was working with Gotthard, which is like a generation younger than Crocus, and they were very popular and still are around. And he had finished with Gotthard, and so I called him up, "Hey, Mandy, you know most of the songs. Would you like to join?" Because Fernando, blah, blah. And we came to the USA. We did a club tour, kind of incognito, just to get the band spirit together. Back on a tour bus, tour in the USA, It was like a suicide trip. And but we enjoyed it, But commercially, nothing looked out of it. We just went through the paces and became a solid band. Then we came back to Switzerland, wrote songs, and out came Hellraiser, And the Hellraiser album was actually the last one, last album before the big reunion with Chris and Fernando and Marc Kohler, Freddie Steady. We were back in the big arenas and stuff like that. So that was special. And funnily enough, it even lasted longer than our first successful period in the 80s. We came together in 2008. Then Hoodoo came out in 2009. And now it's 2019. We were still together and touring and doing this, that, and the other. So we matured. We lost our differences, or let's say we swallowed a lot of them and compromised a lot. When you mature, you grow older. It's easier to do that, because you just want that. You don't want to rock the boat, You just want to keep on sailing, and enjoy. And
well, I wanted to jump in on that real quick because you mentioned a few records there in Hoodoo and Hellraiser, Dirty Dynamite, records that maybe people here in the U.S. aren't aware of, but Crocus was, in addition, when you guys came back together, in addition to touring, it was very important. You guys did make new music, and you made some records that did quite well, especially in certain parts of the world, maybe not as well known here in America. And, I remember, Marc, when Chris came back to the band, and I think it was for the Hoodoo record, I had Chris Von Rohr on, and we were talking about this, and I know that there were some fans, which I'm sure you picked up on, that when you guys did come through and play, there was a period of time, because maybe Chris wasn't in the band or what have you, where you didn't do certain material. That here in America, the Blitz record and Midnight Maniac and all of that, Our Love, those were big songs and big MTV videos, and you steered away from that stuff when you came back and started playing again. And I remember Chris was kind of down on it and didn't want to play it. Where did you land on all of that? Were you in agreement? How do you feel about that period of time? Because here in America, even the Headhunter record, that Screaming in the Night, that's the stuff you're best known for.
Screaming in the Night, Headhunter album, that was our biggest one in the USA. After that came the Blitz, and we kind of changed the style a little bit, and with Change of Address, it changed even more. That's why it was called Change of Address. And, then we took Chris back on, and we did Heart Attack, and we tried to retrieve the same sound we had on One Vice at a Time and Hardware, but it was like too late, we had missed the boat, and there was grunge coming in and stuff. So, and then we split up. After that, we took a long hiatus, and Chris did that, this, that, and the other, and so did everybody. And So when we came back together, Fernando and I said, before doing Hoodoo, Chris accumulated a lot of experience as a producer, producing Gotthard albums and stuff, and he's a person who has a lot of drive and motivation, and he can work on details better than Fernando and me, put together. So I'll give him that. The only thing, though, is that if there are songs that he wasn't involved with, like Midnight Maniac and Our Love, I have to be honest, they just don't come into his repertoire. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them,
Yeah.
Whereas I do anything, I do what the fans want. That's been my thing, to try and suss out and feel what the fans want to have. And as a matter of fact, I have Midnight Maniac and To the Top, which we hadn't played since ages with Crocus. And they're on my live repertoire now with the Storace.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's great playing Midnight Maniac again. And when I play that now, I think of the fans in the USA that write to me on Facebook and say, why don't you play Midnight Maniac and Our Love, and I think, well, you should come over here now. or maybe if I'm lucky, I'm dying to come over and do a tour in the States. But it's not easy, and now the price of gas has shot up.
Yeah.
So, make things even worse. But if I could get on a package tour with my solo project, Storace band, I'll be there in a flash.
And and listening to the record and knowing what you're doing, Marc, I mean, what's interesting about your record that you put out under your name, Storace, and again, it's Marc's first solo record. Anybody that's a Crocus fan is going to like this, because they're going to certainly like your voice, and it's straight up rock and roll and hard rock. But the thing that I think that's cool about it is, it's not a carbon copy of all the things you've done in Crocus, because you've taken some different turns on here. You've got a couple ballads, you've got a bluesy song on here, you've got straight up, hard rockers on here. So I would imagine that for you, as a guy who spent whatever it was, 40 years as the singer in Crocus or longer, that to have the opportunity to spread out a little bit and do a little bit different stuff, all still rock, but do some different things, I would think that would have been very appealing to you, and that's what you wanted to do, right?
Exactly. That was the goal in the first place. And actually, I wrote songs with three different guys, four different guys. And I managed to get a concept together out of, I had about 30 songs to choose from, all these demos, old and new. And so that was a bit of scrambling for my head. But I think democratically, I put everything forward to the producer, engineer, and the band and management and people. I like to have their feedback, and then I compare it with my own decisions, and that's when I chose the songs, and the running order for the album came like it was magic. I didn't even have to spend 2 minutes on that. So it was so great, the time I invested in writing songs with Charlie Preissel back 20 years ago, and this guy, Adrian Fisher, a guitar player living in Newcastle, and we worked together via internet, and these two guys, Cyril and Massimo, a guitar player and a drummer, who also produced and engineered in their own studio the new album, it was like they came up with five tracks which are on the album, and 3 from Adrian Fisher and another 2 with Charlie, So we went for 10 songs, recorded 11, and one of them's a reserve or whatever. We didn't even finish it completely. But it was such a nice thing for me also, not for the fact of just to stay creative. That's what I am, I'm a singer. It's a virus. It's inside my system, my psyche, my emotions, and you can't believe it, Eddie. What pleasure I had doing this. It was a work of passion. And these guys were really into it. The musicians are all studio musicians, well experienced. They can play anything from reggae to blues, rock, and stuff. And so it was a nice experience working with different kind of musicians, and always making a check that it stays rock, like,
right.
Don't drift into anything else, guys. Let's keep it rock.
Right. Right, and that's what I meant. That's what I meant when I said there's anybody that likes Crocus is going to like this because it's a rock record. But you were able to take some turns here and there as well, which is what you'd want to do. I would think when you get a chance to make your first record, outside of the band, sure, makes sense.
That was the first thing that motivated me to join Crocus in the beginning, because they sent me demos of the first. My debut album with Crocus was Metal Rendezvous, and there was reggae in there. There was a bluesy kind of feeling. There was an all out rock and roll. It was also an album which was very colorful, and that's what I like. I don't like every song to sound the same, so that you don't know one song from the other. There's only 10 songs after all, so I can actually. I started to picture this kind of landscape. It's like painting a picture for where you come in, like even like a live gig. You come in with all out, live and let live, and then you go through the colors. That's how I look at music. I'm not very technical. I can't read or write music. Never wanted to either. Although I come from a family that reads and writes music, classical background and stuff like that. But I rebelled against that. I said, I don't want to learn Chinese. So it was really nice. Yeah,
no doubt. Well, I'm thinking of Metal Rendezvous. I mean, that being your first record, that's 42 years ago. It's just crazy. I remember getting that record and hearing it initially, and that was your debut with the band. And that record actually ended up being a huge record in, I believe, Switzerland, right? That's a huge record for Crocus internationally, still, right?
Yeah, very big. 4 times platinum in Switzerland, and
wow,
it's one of the big ones. Yeah, but Switzerland's a little country, But at the same time, you can say that Headhunter in the USA is the equivalent,
Yeah, for sure.
And Headhunter was more metal, but there again, what we managed to do with Headhunter was also, it's so colorful for what it is. It's metal. Yeah. It sounds metallic as well, and there's all kinds of songs, and there's this big ballad, "Screaming in the Night,"
Yeah.
which really softens the landscape a little bit, and there's even one about Russian Winter, which is a romantic song, has nothing to do with what's going on today. And anyway, it's not the Russians we're against.
Right.
It's their leader.
Yes,
but anyway,
exactly.
there's other stuff, on Headhunter, which makes it a incredible album for me too.
Yeah, it's a great record, and the song Headhunter, I've said many people point to that as maybe a song that was one of the foundations for thrash metal because of the double kick in it and the speed of that. That was one of the faster things people had heard at that time, the song Headhunter. And then Eat the Rich got some play, and there's the BTO cover that's on there. So, yeah, great record. Hard to believe it's been 41 years since it came out. Hey, Marc, I got to run, but I got to ask you one final thing before we let you go.
Yeah.
If you can once and for all set the record straight on this, because I remember when Chris came on for a recent record, and he's like, no, it's all rubbish. He goes, he doesn't even know those guys. The whole story about you and AC/DC, anything to it or no? Set the record straight for once. Did you ever audition? Did you ever meet them? Was it just an idea? Did they ever actually contact you? What is the actual story there?
Well, there was this guy who was the CEO of this production company in Birmingham, which was like the center of heavy metal in the world in those days, Black Sabbath and everybody was doing the productions up there. And so we went and they built a light show for us. They built the castle for us. They built the portcullis, which we have on One Vice at a Time. And so this was the hardware album. And they drove down to Switzerland with this huge truck containing our new light show. And the CEO, Steve Docks, he took me on the side and said, hey, Marc, AC/DC's looking for a singer. Do you want me to put your name forward? Because, I think you would fit. And I said, and in those days, I was kind of a little bit naive about AC/DC. I knew they were bigger than Crocus at that point, but not that much big. I mean, it wasn't Journey or, Aerosmith level or whatever. And I was really happy with Crocus. I had tried. I had a background of trying to get my world success, if you like, with bands like T and Easy Money. And here I was with Crocus. The debut album, my debut album with them, Metal Rendezvous, shot through the skies and made an echo around the world. We were doing tours like I never did before. And I was happy. I was getting on well with the guys. And so I didn't want to change horses in the middle of the race. I mean, if I had been having any problems, I might have thought about his question and told him, oh, give me a minute or so. But my answer was very spontaneous. I said, no, Steve, I don't think so. It was like, I'd like to stay where I am. I don't want to take risks. I love the guys. I love the music. I'm enjoying myself here. I didn't think further, and that's the only thing that happened. But then, of course, when it got out, somebody asked me, I don't know how it got out. Of course, the press make a big thing out of it, and a little ant gets blown into a big elephant, and it's actually not right. Because I love Brian Johnson as much as I love Bon Scott and the whole band, and they gave the world something which is incredibly precious. And so I don't want to throw any kind of whatever second thoughts or whatever misunderstandings in that direction whatsoever. That's all that it was.
And you know what? I completely understand that in context, and anyone should, because at that point, Back in Black hadn't come out. Nobody knew what AC/DC was going to be or what turn they were going to take. And here you are with your first record with your own, really what was viewed as your own band, Crocus, even though it wasn't technically the first record. It was your first record, and it was a huge record, as we just discussed, Metal Rendezvous, 4 times platinum. I mean, why would you uproot that if you've got that going? I completely understand it in context. Of course, now looking back on it, people would be like, oh my God, he was crazy. But in 1980, 1979, not like that at all. I completely get it.
Exactly. It's like, you know, betting on a horse, you know. How can you say later on, oh, shit, I should have bet on the other horse? Well, come on, you know, give me a break. That's life. That's how it is. And you know, after all, when I look back, I don't feel I made a mistake at all. That wasn't a mistake. It was logical thinking. But as you put it, you know, looking back at it from today, of course, well.
Right. I got it, totally. Hey, I got to run. Marc, I'm out of time. I got to hit a break, but it's great catching up with you. Next time, if I should get to Switzerland, I'm definitely going to look you up next time. And if you get to the U.S., certainly get in touch with me. And everybody check out Marc's first ever solo record, simply under his name, Storace. It's called Live and Let Live. It's out now. Couple videos you can see on YouTube. The music is out there, available wherever you get your music, and some great stuff on it, and always sounding in good voice as well. Great to catch up with you for a bit, Marc. Thank you for the time, okay?
Thanks a lot, Eddie. I know you're a busy man, and thanks for your time. All the best, and I'll be looking into following what you're doing.
All right, same here, man. All the best to you. I hopefully see you soon.
Okie doke. Yes, hope so. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. There he goes, everybody.
You too. Take care.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Oh, there's Marc Storace, and great guy. Great to visit with him. Always a great attitude about things, and finally set the record straight on the never-ending Storace should have been an AC/DC stuff.